Dear children, welcome back to the online class of Sri Gokulam Public School. Last class we studied about supply and its determinants. You know, when these determinants are changing, supply also is changing. Today we will study about changes in supply. Changes in supply we can study under two heads. Number 1, expansion and contraction of supply, and number 2, shifts in supply. Today let's study about expansion and contraction of supply or movement along the supply curve or change in quantity supplied. Okay? So, changes in supply we can study under two heads. Number 1, expansion and contraction of supply or movement along the curve. Number 2, shifts in supply or increase and decrease in supply. Okay, today let us discuss the first type of change in supply, that is expansion and contraction or movement along the curve, or change in quantity supplied. You have already studied the law of supply or the theory of supply. Explains the direct or positive relationship between price and quantity supplied. In the law of supply we already studied price and quantity supplied have direct relationship. Price and supply are moving in the same direction. Okay. As you know, supply expands at a higher price, supply contracts at a lower price. Okay, so expansion and contraction of supply are the technical words used to denote change in supply due to change in price, assuming that other factors are held constant. Okay, expansion and contraction of supply are the technical words used to denote change in supply due to change in the own price, assuming that other factors are held constant. What do you mean by expansion? Supply expands at a higher price. Supply contracts at a lower price. Okay? So, expansion means supply expands at a higher price. Contraction means supply contracts at a lower price. That is, price is high, supply is high. Price is low, supply is low. We already studied it. Now, how can we show expansion and contraction? Or it is also known as movement along the curve. This is an upward sloping supply curve. By moving along the curve, we can show expansion and contraction. So what causes a movement along the curve? Price changes, isn't it? What causes a movement along the curve? Price changes. For example, point A, point B, point C. We can show upward movements, A to B. We can show downward movements also, A to C. You see, P, P1, P2, Q, Q1, Q2. For example, movement along the curve. Movement from A to B, upward movement. Upward movement shows expansion. Point A at OP1 price supplies only OQ1. Upward movement, from A to B. Supply increased from OQ1 to OQ2. Here at a higher price, OP2 price. Okay. So, upward movement from A to B shows expansion. Similarly, downward movement from A to C shows contraction. Why contraction? At a lower price. Okay. So, what causes movement along the curve? Price changes. What causes upward movement? For example, movement from A to B, expansion of supply due to higher price. What shows a downward movement? Movement from A to C, contraction of supply due to lower price. Okay? So, the first type of change in supply, expansion and contraction. Here we study change in supply due to change in price, assuming that other factors are held constant. This is also known as movement along the curve, you know. By moving along the curve, we can show expansion and contraction. Movement along the curve is due to price changes. We can show upward movements and downward movements. Upward movement shows expansion, that is supply expands at a higher price. Downward movement shows contraction. Supply contracts, you know, at a lower price. Okay. So, this is also known as change in quantity supplied. This is also known as change in quantity supplied. Why? Quantity supplied has been changing when the own price is changing, isn't it? This type of change is also known as change in quantity supplied. Why? Quantity supplied has been changing when the own price is changing. For example, take point C. Quantity supplied is OQ at OP price. Again, when the price increased from OP to OP1, quantity supplied increased to OQ1. Again, when the price is more, that is OP2 price, you know, quantity supplied is OQ2. What's the meaning? This is also known as change in quantity supplied. How quantity supplied has been changing when the own price is changing? How can you say? Supply expands at a higher price, supply contracts at a lower price. This is the first type of change in supply. This is technically known as expansion and contraction. This is also known as movement along the curve. Through upward and downward movements, you know, along an upward sloping supply curve, we can show expansion and contraction. This is also known as change in quantity supplied, because here we study how quantity supplied has been changing when the own price is changing, assuming that other factors are held constant. Okay, thank you.